Hi, it's John from Cross by John UK. Today's video is a technique one. I'm going to show you how to create this lovely faded effect, which is perfect on something like this big fat text for a let it snow effect where we're fading from blue to white. Hopefully people might find it useful. So I'm going to start this. I'm using literally one colour. This is a sapphire blue Arteza real brush pen. And what I'm colouring is this. So it's got a let it snow, have a cool Yule, and then I've got a little penguin which I'm going to cut out and put on the top. I've got a version of this made already, but what I thought I'd show in this technique video is how to colour so that you get a lovely fade. So you can see here another one I've done. You get a definite light blue fade down to a lighter blue. So I know it's quite daunting sometimes when people colour kind of large letters, getting that nice fade. So I thought, well, I'll just do a little video and show you how I do it. So I've got my water pen. So this is the water pen that came with this set of pens from Arteza. And I'm going to use that basically, but I'm going to first of all lay down the colour with this blue. This isn't going to be a long video. This is quite a fast technique, and I've kind of zoomed in really tight so you can see what I'm doing. So all I do is I take the blue, and I usually put a piece of scrap paper on the bottom of the project, so I don't want to smear anything or mess anything up with a dirty mark. All I do is I take that blue and I just go across underneath any horizontal line. Now you can see I'm not putting an awful lot of colour down. So that blue, and then you take your water brush and you go over the blue that you've put, and then you pull it down basically. So by you pulling it down, you're thinning the colour. By the time the colour has been shared across, you end up with a fade. Now I've actually picked up the darker blue there by mistake, but the effect is going to be the same. What you can do at the top as you do it is just blot that top bit, and that will take more of it off. So move on to the second letter. You can see this is just a repeatable process. It's rinse and repeat. Every single bit you just go over basically. So activate the blue by just putting some water on it from your water brush. I'm not squeezing the water brush, just using what's in the tip. If you want to, you can take some colour off by just dabbing it on a piece of kitchen towel, which I've got next to me. But basically you are pulling and stretching the blue into the rest of the letter, and the more you go over it, the thinner the colour will become. So it's going to make it even thinner. There we go, and just keep going over it. And basically you do it on the horizontal, so it kind of almost looks like snow. And basically just go over every letter. So you just follow this same process, obviously with a slightly lighter blue. It's a little bit more subtle. I've gone for a slightly darker one here. But basically just take the blue off and then work with the pigment that you've got on the page and just pull that down. If it's too dark at the top, keep going over it, because more of it will get picked up by your water brush, and then you can drag it down, as you can see I've just done there. And you end up with a really nice fade from obviously a light blue at the bottom all the way to a darker blue at the top. And just keep working it basically. So you can go in circles, you can drag it down. I mean, it's just up to you how you do it, but basically this is what you end up with. Always finish off at the top, because your water brush has got a load of colour on it anyway, as you can see there. But always take the water brush to the kitchen towel between letters so that you kind of neutralise it. If you feel you've got too much ink on your brush, obviously just tap it out on the kitchen towel, but always finish at the top. And I would say always neutralise as well. So there you go. So there's a few letters done, and then you can just take the pen again and do the next lot. So basically all you're doing is just highlighting anything where there's a kind of a horizontal. Now when you get to round letters, something like snow, I would do above the hole in the O and also underneath it. Something like a W, you can see I've just done those two little bits there. So just work in the same way, but basically all you're doing, it's almost like a light reflection. It's where the light would hit, or where, for instance, snow would fall. So just work with the pigment that you've laid on the page, And there's probably lots of different ways of doing this. This is the way I do it. It kind of works successfully. So I thought, well, let's just do a little video and share that as a technique for people. As obviously we're coming into Christmas, you might want to do a kind of a faded technique. And this is a relatively easy way of doing that. If you find that the colour's gone on too dark in one place, just blot it with your kitchen towel. That also works. You can take off. This is the thing I love about these Arteza pens. They're very, very forgiving. If you work with something like Pro markers, they're a lot more kind of permanent. I know obviously you've got a blender in Pro markers that does allow you to take a bit off, but I think these watercolor pens of any brand are better, because obviously you can add water and use that to take away or dull down. With the alcohol markers, I find they're less forgiving when you make a mistake or you want to change something. It's kind of harder. So I use them for things like flat bold color or a flat bold simple fade. But something like this, I would always go for my Arteza pens, just because it's quite simple. So there we're activating all the pigment. We're activating the pigment. Better to do the darker bits first, then take the color off, then stretch out the pigment you've pulled from those dark bits into the lighter bits. And then, as I say, always finish on the darker bit, because you've got it loaded on your brush. And I usually tend to kind of dot. That way you don't get any kind of hard edges. I'm not going to do the whole thing because it's a repeat of the same process, but I just wanted to share kind of my way of doing this. Now, on something like a W, I would typically do just those bits around the curves, but obviously blend that in with the rest. And this is obviously a watercolor paper as well. This is, I think it's like a 300 GSM, £140 paper. It needs to be able to take the water. So make sure you're working with a paper that's suitable. There we go. And just always give it a good last look over. The thing with watercolors, you can always go back in. With Pro markers, if you go back in, you then got to kind of color the whole thing again. But with these, they're just that little bit more forgiving. Okay, I'm just noticing at the top there, that's not completely blended. And as I say, this is a little bit darker. I've used the slightly darker pen, so you can see I've got a real difference in how it looks, but it still looks fine. So there you go. You can see quite an interesting blended effect. You can see here, this isn't very good, but as I said, you can always go back in, because it's watercolor, you can kind of reactivate it and refade it basically. If you do that, you need to kind of go over the whole thing, otherwise you'll end up with a kind of a water edge basically, which dries and you can see it. So if you do go in on one letter or one area, just make sure you kind of wet the whole thing again. But you can keep going back in over. So if you see something that doesn't look right when you kind of look at it, when you're finished, just go back in over it. There we go, and I've just done the O again as well. The S, I'm looking at this and thinking, well, that's a little bit dark. Just going over it, wet it all again. And that will take it down a little bit, and you can always blot it as well. There we go. So that's all I wanted to show you in this little technique video, how to colour a kind of conscious fade, basically. There we go. Hope you've enjoyed that, and I'll catch you on another video.